Hi everyone, I'm Gladi Cologne.
And I'm Laura Hartman.
And you're watching a new episode of Brand New Day on Be Well TV. Catch us here on Thursdays for a brand new episode. Today's special guest is coming to us all the way from Columbia, Missouri.
Yay! My hometown.
Your hometown.
Yeah. So today is such a special episode for us and especially for me because not only do we get to talk shop, industry, insight, event, hospitality, shop, but I get to do it with one of my dearest, oldest friends, Ann Tegerdine. I almost said Ann Churchill, your maiden name, because I'm so used to that. But Ann, all the way from Columbia, Missouri. Ann and I have been girlfriends since
Welcome, Ann.
Welcome, Ann. Hi. We've been girlfriends since we were in kindergarten. So truly one of my dearest and oldest friends.
You want to tell us how many years that's been?
That's a lot.
Okay.
It's over 30 years.
Yay.
We're over 30 years. It's a long time.
How do you guys stay friends for so long? Is it just small town?
I think I'm sure there's some of the small town effect there, but I think it's also just culture of, we're kind of one of a group of girlfriends that better all be watching right now. But we are truly just, sisters, and we all kind of grew up together, and there's, 9 of us in a group, and a lot of us we clung to one another when we were so young, and we kind of just were this pack that stayed together forever, and we've been through so many life's highs and lows with one another that I think at a certain point nothing breaks that.
Of course.
And I am one of a few of us have moved outside of Columbia. We have one in North Carolina and one in Arkansas. Obviously, I'm in Florida, but we always pick right up where we left off. And the group texting is a really great benefit for a group of girlfriends like ours, is we just kind of keep it going. It's always
pay attention
running.
if you want to, or ignore for the day if you want to.
It's always running. There's always something going on, and so.
Well, Ann, I've had the pleasure of meeting you before too, so thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
Yeah. So we want to just kind of dive right into it because we have a lot of content to get to today. So to give you a little bit of background about Ann, she is the owner and the lead planner for Annabelle Events in Columbia, Missouri. So again, welcome to the show, Ann. We're so thrilled to have you.
How's business going?
There's business. I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So I started Annabelle Events 11 years ago. This is year 11 in October. So the pandemic hit in year 10 when we should have been having a huge party to celebrate.
Oh my gosh.
It's picking back up. We had 7 inquiries in the last 3 weeks. So
wow, that's amazing.
I couldn't be happier. That's really low in the big scheme of things, but
yeah.
So for now we're happy with that.
So one of the reasons that we really wanted to have Ann on the show today is because, we even realize us being here in Orlando, huge convention city, and then kind of on the opposite side of the country is Vegas. And we were just really feeling like there's just so much attention on, is Vegas reopen? Is Orlando reopen? And it was always the Vegas, Florida, back and forth, because it's just such a huge, I guess, mecca.
The big cities.
The big cities, huge mecca of our industry. But what about everybody else all over the country? What about everyone in between? There's event planners and wedding planners all over the country, vendors all over the country that were affected, and no one's really talking about them. And we wanted to make sure that we could really speak to somebody like Ann that can give us that insight on how it really went down all the way out in the Midwest. And so Ann, why don't you give us a little bit more background about Annabelle Events, what kind of business you are typically doing? Are you more corporate, weddings? Leading into the pandemic, what was life like for you and your business?
Yeah, so we're based in Columbia, like you said. We're about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from any major town or major city, Kansas City and St. Louis. And I fondly will say it's College Town, USA. We have the University of Missouri here, plus 2 other great schools. And that makes us a unique market that we're small. It's about 120,000, double what we grew up with. So
Wow.
it's a thriving, I know, right? It's a thriving city. And it's a highly educated city because of the universities we have and a high medical background here and things like that. So it makes it affluent when it wouldn't normally maybe be. So it makes for a great market to own a small business. And over the years, our typical mix is about 30 to 40 events a year. I like to say about 15 weddings, a couple galas and big corporate things. Think like golf tournaments, galas, dinners, anniversary parties, and then a sprinkle of little things.
Yeah.
Smaller 25 to 50 person events in people's homes. So that's what it usually looks like. And actually, right before the pandemic, I was bringing on some full-time folks.
Oh, wow.
We were getting revved back up to where I had been a couple years prior. And I'd kind of taken a step back because I didn't like the growth, but we were hitting that 10-year mark and I felt like I really needed to do it. So we were getting ready to do that. And that's all stopped.
Yeah.
This year, it's just me and I have one associate planner under me. And then we have a team of part-timers
Okay.
that pop in as we need to. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes back.
So how did you handle it when everything started to close and events started to cancel?
Yeah. So now looking back, one of the things that surprises me the most is how quickly it hit Columbia. So it was actually February when I started feeling the effect. We had a 75th birthday party for a client, about 150 people in their home. And they started asking me, and I thought they were crazy. Not going to lie. They were asking for deposits and refunds, like what would that look like? And I just thought it would be fine. So as that started, I also was speaking to my husband, like, we're not getting inquiries. My calendar's not full like it normally would be. I had also rolled off of maternity leave 2 months prior to that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was the effect I was feeling. I was a little naive.
Sure.
In it. I think that was actually a blessing in disguise, though. It was a little bit of a cushion for me. I didn't feel it as hard initially.
Sure.
Because I thought it was almost my own fault for maternity leave.
Yeah.
And then I was in a little denial. I almost compare it to like the stages of grief.
Yeah.
You know, you're in denial, then I was mad. I didn't want to get on social media for my business. That was a really hard thing to overcome, to want to post happy posts and keep reminiscing on what we had done. Because when it did hit, the trickle effect was February, a little bit March. Columbia here shut down March 15th. And we were closed. Our doors were closed. And we really didn't open back up until this April. So we went
It's been
13
a really
months of
intense
nothing.
shutdown there.
Yeah. We have an interesting city and what they've done. Like dance floors were outlawed. Catering all had to have like full sneeze guards, no bars.
I can't imagine a life where dance floors are outlawed. That just is my worst nightmare.
Yeah, we had to have permits written for first dances. I mean, it was very extreme. So during the pandemic, I had one wedding that actually happened. And it was so emotional for her. It was a full Catholic traditional wedding. The priest was, I hate to say, but horrible to her because everything was so strict. She was in tears through most of her ceremony. And then the reception was hard to deal with. And so when we had that one, I just kind of said, we're done. You know, if we're going to get inquiries, we're going to be done till this reopens because it was just too hard.
Being a wedding professional is already hard as it is under normal circumstances. And trying to pull one off during a pandemic, I can only imagine. You could probably make a movie out of what you went through with that last one.
And I do feel like
it's been interesting.
I kind of remember you and I having that conversation of, because we were both saying how we were kind of keeping in touch with how's it affecting you and what are you seeing and what's going on. And just, from the different parts, everyone, you kind of were reaching out to anybody that you knew in the business to say, is this just me and us? Like, are you feeling it too? And I remember, I want to say at one point you were saying, it's not enjoyable anymore. If we have to do it within these guidelines, that's not why we do this job. We do it because we can be creative and we can think outside the box, and we don't have
people can socialize.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you said an interesting comment about going through some emotions and not wanting to be as visible on social media anymore or posting actively. What were your feelings like, and what back then, I guess, and what made you decide to kind of pull back then being so present on social media? Because I feel like other business owners can relate to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt kind of a fork in the road of like, I either needed to put on a phony fake face and go down one route and it would be all smiles. And we have enough pictures that we could have kept posting and everything. Or I could be really raw and real with it. And that's what Annabelle is built on. We're so authentic. So that was the route I took. It meant we weren't around as much on social media, but I also felt like there wasn't anything we were going to lose. I personally struggled then. I had Claire will be 2 this fall. So she was pretty young when the pandemic hit. Coming home to her, and then we're also a blended family, and like coming home to my kids with anything, we didn't know them. You know, for all I knew, I was going to go to a 200-person event or wedding and then come home with coronavirus.
Right.
And, you know, putting my family in jeopardy. So it was a big pull that way. We did have some other planners in our market that just went to neighboring towns that were about 25 minutes away that had no rules.
Okay.
And they kept thriving and they did their thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I thought about that. But it just didn't sit right with me. In the beginning, you know, looking back, maybe that's what I should have done. But in the moment, the decision we made was not to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to follow your gut. And, you know, I know your gut's usually always right, whether it's, you know, personal decisions or business decisions. And I think, you know, seeing one of the weddings that you just finished producing recently, pretty sure you made the right choice. And when we're wrapping up, we're definitely going to direct everybody to your social media pages, because you just have to see this absolutely stunning wedding that Anne just, I'm sure you're still exhausted from it. I would be after seeing the photos, but I think you made the right choice. That maybe, you know, all the roads led you to the value of the quality and the product of, I'm sure, the clientele that you're working with, and just really the caliber of, you know, of what you're doing now probably outweighs maybe some of those, you know, carrots you would have been thrown along the way. And you got to spend so much time with your newborn, and you know, that's again such a silver lining and blessing to this whole situation.
Takes us back to our last episode about being thankful, right?
I know, yes. We just did a wellness episode last week, and being one of the pro tips is be thankful for every day. So.
And so all the regulations have been lifted, all state and local regulations and mandates in Orlando. Pretty much, I think the whole state at this point. Orlando was the last city to follow suit. What is it like
in
at
Columbia?
home?
Yeah. So Missouri, everything is lifted, which is great. It was quick. We went from being very locked down to all of a sudden no masks required. So as long as you're vaccinated, you're fine. We can gather in any groups. I am a little concerned for the fall, though. When I talk to like co-vendors, those types of things, people I work with a lot, I tend to not be as optimistic as some, because one of the big factors in Columbia is the university, like I mentioned earlier. And we saw our shutdowns parallel with their being in attendance. And the University of Missouri hasn't put any requirements for the students coming back.
Okay.
So it will be interesting. And then we also, where we have a huge percentage of vaccinations and things like that, and to each their own. But we are having the variants really show up in southern Missouri. And unfortunately, Columbia, the town I'm in, makes a lot of their decisions based on the whole state. Not necessarily our market sometimes. So I'm not as optimistic as the fall. We're still going full steam ahead. We have lots on the calendar. But I'm treading cautiously. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've taken away from this is really it's one day at a time. And it's, you know, you all have done this too. We always have plan Bs and even Cs and Ds sometimes. But it's talking to our clients really in the beginning and saying, hey, there's a chance it could be this way or this way. Either way, we're going to make it happen. So it's been interesting how that's affected our clients. We don't do a lot of destination weddings. Mid-Missouri keeps us busy, but this year we're going to Colorado, New
Oh,
Orleans,
wow.
and
I was
Sedona.
just going to ask you.
wow.
I was
3
just going to
places?
ask you.
Yes.
So Colorado, where else?
New Orleans and Sedona.
Oh, wow. So
Yes.
are those clients all from mid Missouri and you're traveling with them, or oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's exactly what happened. So they had made the mindset that they wanted a small celebration. And then when things opened back up, they debated on having something big again. But kind of like I was just speaking to, they almost don't trust what will be in the fall. So they just want to stick with their 60, maybe 80 people and
Aw.
let's go somewhere else where
Yeah.
they know it's going to be okay. You know, in major markets where I'm sure Orlando and Vegas, they have the ability to put so many precautions in place
Right.
Right. Wow,
that
Yeah.
we're not necessarily focused on here.
True.
that's a great way to redefine your business. You just
Yeah.
said you've never had to leave, and now you have 3 weddings outside because you're just learning
Yeah.
how to deal with the current circumstances. That's incredible.
Yeah. And something that I took notice that you were doing that I thought was really smart, Anne, that maybe you had made that conscious decision to proceed with caution and not, go outside of the city parameters, but you really stayed relevant with your brand in other ways, and that was being a resource to your market on where the city was at with all the regulations. I mean, I remember you were posting kind of day by day at one point, as the different phases were coming out, and tailoring it to this is what it means for events. It means she would get on. I saw a couple lives that you even did that said, hey, they just put out these regulations. This is what it means for us. No more dance floors, and you were really spelling it out. And I thought that was so smart because you were able to show your future potential clients that you were very focused on the information on the guidelines, what was happening. You were being very respectful of those guidelines and to me, if I'm on the other side and I'm seeing that, I'm thinking, wow, I want to work with her because she's really following the rules and being very respectful of the guidelines, and I know that I'm in really good hands when I work with her. So I thought that was very, very smart of you to do that, and also just so, in general, helpful as a resource, as well as just, I know that that's who you are by nature, of just a person who's always going to help. If you have information, Anne is just that person that is going to share that information. So I thought it was
I
very
appreciate
defining
that.
of your brand.
Thank you. Part of it was trying to find something to post, but there was a lot of misunderstanding. I don't know if you guys had that in your market, and also the media. We had our health department had ambassadors going around to bars and restaurants and shutting them down.
Yeah,
They would
we
walk
heard of
in,
that.
and if they're breaking the rules, they shut them down. And to me, the worst thing that could have happened is the one wedding we had, our local NBC station coming in and being, pointing fingers.
Right.
And saying, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. And
Yeah.
we all heard of those weddings where it was mass spreadings
Yeah.
of, COVID. And so that just felt like it couldn't happen. And
Yeah.
the one wedding we did have, there were a number of things that I had to say, hey, did you file the right permits? Did you do this? And people just weren't doing it because they didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was educating yourselves and making sure
Yeah.
everything was right. So
Yeah.
I was hoping that people would understand that, it was a fine line through all of COVID to make sure you're pleasing everybody and not offending anyone.
Well,
So I tried to
thought
keep
it
my
was
opinion
great.
out.
I thought it was
Well, I
great, and
appreciate
it's hard to know where to turn when something like that's happening. Is where do I turn to even find out what these rules are? And so it was great that you kind of just spearheaded that and shared that, and I think you hit on something else of it's an important difference to think about when you're talking about a wedding or an event that could be shut down by the health inspector. When we're talking about that happening at a big resort in Orlando or Vegas or LA or something like that, okay, yeah, that's going to be inconvenient. No one's going to like that. It's probably not going to end up on the news per se, but if that's to happen in Columbia, Missouri, that yes, a beautiful, thriving highly populated city, it's a smaller market that there is the 1 to 2 local news stations that's now news, and I think it's an important thing for somebody like yourself to be so mindful of, and additionally mindful of that, because now you're connected to that story if something was to happen. So it's something really important for people to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
sure
agree.
Anne was trying to be very careful
Oh, yeah.
with every move
I'm
she
sure.
made, especially last year. So what was that turning point for you that you realized, okay, business is back, my phone's off the hook, and I can't even keep up? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so that was about a month and a half ago. We had a wedding at the end of May and then one in the beginning of June. And just 2 weddings is typically fine to manage, not a big deal. But there were, at the same time of that happening, the regulations were being lifted, but they weren't quite there. So there were so many details we were working through. And one of the things I hadn't mentioned during the pandemic is I actually took on a part-time job, virtual job to pay the bills, because I'm not one to run myself into debt just because the business isn't working. And so I had to let that go, which was a big milestone to say, okay, we're okay and we can let that go. I've got to focus on the business.
Yeah.
And it was really relieving, like to have that first wedding. And then the second one, Laura, you mentioned
bet.
the really large one that we had. It was really fulfilling. And then at the same time, needing to start those social media posts again, knowing we needed to rev up marketing, having those inquiries come in. And then we still have things to come this fall. We have 1, 2, 3, I've got to count them up, but 3 to 4 weddings and a gala this fall right now.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
Great.
I'm hoping we hit 10 total for this year. That'll be a third of the business we usually have, but I'd be really happy if we hit that.
Are you to that point where you were last year? You were about to hire. I think you said you were about to onboard 2 people. Are you there again yet, or not quite sure?
Yeah. So one surprising thing I don't think people are talking about is this year, 2021 is probably going to be a harder financial year than 2020 was. So 2020, I had the deposits from those weddings. I had retainers still going. When COVID hit, I put all of my clients on pause. I didn't feel good taking their money if we didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
And I also was not in the position to give refunds, if I got so far down.
Yeah.
So this year, all but one of our weddings is a rollover. So there's not a lot of balance due. Like the wedding we just did, they were paid in full by January.
Right.
So I don't have the income to match the work that we're doing this year. So that's affecting staffing. We can't bring in the people we normally would. It'll be 2022, 2023 probably before I can get where I was hoping to be before, with the track we were on.
Is there any advice that you would give to other wedding professionals such as yourself who are struggling with the same situation with rebooks?
Yeah, so I think just taking it slowly and being kind to yourself is the big thing. We were talking a little offline about some issues I'm running into with vendors double booking. And I think right now we're all grasping, right? We all need this so much. And we need that business back. We need those deposits. But being kind to yourself and the people that are booking you and not overdoing it. Because I could see people taking on too much or getting themselves into sticky situations. So we have just been very mindful on paring down expenses. I've been very honest with clients from the beginning that we're not doing refunds. So we pay as they go. Essentially, everyone gets on retainer. So if at any time, and we have had a couple this year even, where I'm not sure what the couple's doing, they're changing plans. Do they need us? Do they not need us? Let's be very upfront about that. So communication's the biggest piece of advice.
Yeah.
If you feel a couple or a client is wavering, talk to them immediately. Otherwise, you may find yourself needing to refund thousands of dollars.
Right. That's great advice.
Yeah. But we're doing much better. Like I said, I was able to drop that part-time job. I'm paying myself again. I pulled my first paycheck. for the first time since last
awesome.
February, which is a huge milestone.
Yeah.
It's just growing the team will be a
Yeah.
little bit slower. I'm also super conservative when it comes to that money and, PPP and grants. We've been super
Yeah, you
fortunate,
did.
but I'm making it spread out as far as I can.
Yeah.
You are so good at that.
So-
That is like just so, that's so you in general. Like, she's the one that you go shopping and you know she wants it, but she's like, do I really need it? And you're like, yes, and you need it.
Oh, well, it sounds like you've earned it. So
Yeah.
if you make it shopping anytime, if you make
Yeah.
it shopping anytime soon, treat yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
So overall, what would you say are kind of those, I'm sure the business just has kind of morphed into it's a new brand identity. What would you say are the key differences now of what Annabelle Events is now versus what it used to be?
Great question.
That is a really good question. And it's funny because right now I'm looking at our website and our marketing and even the automated template people get when they inquire with us that I just fill in the blanks. I've been rewriting all that lately to try to make it represent what I want it to be. Because I feel like now when the comeback, we just have so much more heart. Like, not that we didn't like weddings.
Yeah.
And events that we were doing, they had turned into some repetitiveness. I'm not going to lie. COVID's lit that spark again, but we're being a little bit more picky and not in budgets or is your wedding or event grand enough? Does it have the right clientele? But are you celebrating for the right reasons?
Yeah.
Are you going to allow us to do our job? Are you going to trust us that we will create the layout that works best, that we will make the best vendor decisions and spend your budget correctly? And if there's ever any hesitance there, we're just moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's got to be
I've
that
had more-
synergy.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
Especially with weddings, there's that connection. I haven't done weddings for a very long time, but I do remember my favorite part about doing weddings was when you connected with that bride and you genuinely were so excited to work for her, for that family, because you had that friendship, a friendship and a relationship builds. And I think it's nice to hear that you're taking that approach of kind of going back to that of, I can pick and choose now. Who am I going to spend my time with, especially now that you have a growing family?
Yes, yeah. And everyone, it's almost like they've earned their weddings so much. Like they've all been through so much.
Yeah.
Waiting and waiting. They wanted even more.
That's true.
So,
That's a good way to
it's
look at
emotional.
it. And
Yeah.
and those people who've been waiting, they only deserve the best of the
Yeah.
best. So
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
we know, I'm not going to say we can tell, we know that Anne of Annabelle Events is the best of the best in mid-Missouri. So anybody who's watching this, please, I don't care if you're in St. Louis or Kansas City, pull this girl up to come do your wedding. Cause,
well, she travels, so
yeah, she travels. Yeah, that's a non-issue anymore.
if she's got a weekend, she can come to Orlando.
I know. I might just do a vow renewal and let's go. Where are we going to go? Where are we going to do this?
And can you tell our viewers how we can find you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep it really easy. AnnabelleEvents.com. There's just a lot of A's and a lot of E's. And on Instagram and on Facebook, it's at Annabelle Events.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us today and just helping to educate our audience about what event life and what the industry is out in mid-Missouri. You've shined so much light and just, information that I think everyone that watches this is going to really walk away and say, oh my gosh, so many great points.
Yeah.
And, I'm personally just so happy to see you, even though it's virtually, so virtual hugs.
Yeah, right.
But we hope that we can have you back on the show. We're excited to see, in a year from now, where, how much business has picked up and kind of get the update from you. And I know you and I, we've talked about doing an industry insights article as one of our contributors. So a lot more to come from Anne. So.
Thank you, Anne, for being here. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you. To our audience,
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope everybody has a brand new day.